What's going on, everybody? I'm Alex Americano. And if you're a person that isn't a person of color, specifically a white person, and you were at one point in time a child, then congratulations, you are racist. And you had a pro-white, anti-black bias. That's not according to me. That's according to the critical race theory indoctrination that's going on all around the country. And we're starting to see it in Hasbro, the toy company, wanting to push critical race theory into their products to indoctrinate children to further their message. Because schools isn't enough. They want to go straight to the kids through their toys. Here we have a whistleblower from Project Veritas. Critical race theory indoctrination exposed within children's toy manufacturer Hasbro. Insider leaks internal training given to employees. By age 4, kids are showing a strong and consistent pro-white, anti-black bias. The whole point of the whistleblower, who used to be a packaging engineer at Hasbro, there was some training that was mandatory for Hasbro employees. And it was basically critical race theory. They were going through kids through stages of development by certain ages. And they were saying that kids at certain ages displayed certain racist behaviors, ultimately leading to white children growing up to be racists. So we're going to roll the video where they explain and show the training that was given to the Hasbro employees, and we're going to break it down and talk about it. So let's roll the clip.
By 3 to 6 months, babies are beginning to notice and already express preference by race. There was research that looked at how by 6 months, infants living in a homogeneous or same race neighborhood showed preferences for faces from their own racial groups, whereas infants living in more racially diverse environments did not show that same preference for their own racial group.
Now, this is pretty ridiculous to go down and say that kids are essentially racist from the get-go, because they said by 3 to 6 months, babies are beginning to notice and already express preference by race. Now, if there was any sort of preference due to race, it's because of how that child is raised, the people they're around. They're being raised. So say if it's a white child, then more than likely the child's being raised by 2 white parents. So of course that child's going to have a preference for a certain face pigmentation because that's who raises the child. So there's going to be a familiarity with that type of skin color. And it isn't because kids from 3 to 6 months are racist. It's because they're raised by people with the same skin color as them. That doesn't describe racism. Now, if you have a child that's raised by a black and a white parent, then that's different, because then they're going to be familiar with the 2 different colors, 2 different races. But to just say infants from 3 to 6 months are racist, that's ridiculous.
Children as young as 2 are already using race to reason about people's behaviors, and we may see this play out in daycare or on the playground in how kids are starting to choose or exclude playmates and friends.
Now, for children as young as 2, already using race to reason about people's behaviors, we may see this play out in daycare or on the playground about how kids are starting to choose or exclude playmates and friends. Now, I remember when I was a kid, they don't screen people they play with and choose to play with people that are the color that they like and don't play with people that aren't the color they like. Kids don't care about that. Kids play with kids because they want to play, have fun. To sit there and say that kids are screening each other before they can decide if they want to play with a person based on the color of their skin, that's absolutely ridiculous.
By age 3, children are already starting to apply stereotypes, and research shows that they also may use racist language intentionally at this age. And white children at this age may report explicit or overt negative attitudes towards people of color. By age 4, kids are showing a strong and consistent pro-white, anti-black bias. And at this age, it is seen in the research really significantly against black boys, but this anti-black bias occurs across gender at this age.
I want to know what kids they're basing this research around, because I don't know of any kids that are applying stereotypes and using racist language intentionally. And to also say that white children at this age may report explicit or overt negative attitudes towards people of color. The only time a child or somebody would display this type of behavior is if they grew up in a household or around people who influenced that type of behavior, who acted the same ways. and raise their child to believe the same things that they did. That's raising a kid the wrong way to believe something that isn't true, to believe something racist. So because one person may be racist or hold negative feelings towards a specific group of people and raise their child to be the spitting image of themselves doesn't mean that that's going to apply for every single white person, every single white child. I just really want to know where they got their research from. So this leads me to believe that they're pulling this stuff out of thin air just to continue to indoctrinate people, to keep them under the impression that this stuff is really going on in today's society.
Age of 5, children show many of the same racial attitudes held by adults. By this age, children are really also sensitive to the status of different racial groups in our society and show a high status bias towards white people, which is the socially privileged group in our society. White children show pro-white bias at this age, and it's really important to note also that Black and Latinx children do not show the same in-group preference for their own racial groups at this age.
So for this point, for their description of children at 5 years old, it's pretty much the same thing that I just said. Children are going to be a reflection of who they're raised by, environments they grow up in. So if a parent feels that the white people are superior or hold racist views, then more than likely that's going to rub off onto that child, and that child's going to grow up feeling the same way. But that is far few in between. Now, of course, there is going to be children that may act like this. Not just on one side, though. It's not going to be just white children, because what a lot of people think is that you can't be Black and be racist, that you can't be Latin and be racist. There are racist people in every ethnicity. This whole movement of trying to indoctrinate children in today's society is absolutely despicable. It's disgusting. After seeing that video and that training that was made mandatory for Hasbro employees, it really is alarming to see how the pace of which critical race theory is expanding and trying to be pushed onto children. Initially, they were saying that critical race theory wasn't going to be brought into the schools and taught upon children, but then they changed the curriculum of critical race theory in such a way to where it wasn't as overt or as direct as the collegiate curriculum of critical race theory. But at the end of the day, they're still trying to indoctrinate the children. They're trying to get the kids to see the world through a lens of color, through a lens of race. And so critical race theory is essentially, and the people pushing it are essentially building this image of a ladder. And white people are at the very top, and Black people and other people of color at the bottom, holding on to the bottom rung. And what they want to do is essentially flip that ladder, so then that the Black people and people of color are at the top and the white people are at the bottom. That's not the right way to go about it. Fighting an imaginary form of racism with actual racism. I say imaginary form because with critical race theory, they're saying that America is inherently racist, and that our laws, police, everything about the country is systemically racist. And I know you've heard the expression before, fighting fire with fire leaves everyone burnt. Trying to fight racism with this falsely created image of racism that they say is actually occurring. Because to say that it's occurring in this country is to say that it's happening wide scale. It's happening every single place, every city, state, town in this country. When in reality, it's the few that ruin the image of the many. Of course, they're going to be racist people who hold racist beliefs, who raise their children to believe the same things that they do. That's why the critical race theory indoctrination is going the way it is. Because to make generational change, you have to start with the bottom. You have to start with the children, indoctrinate them, brainwash them with what you want them to believe, and then as they grow, they'll pass that down to their kids. I believe that's why they're going for the kids so hard. They're trying to make that change and brainwash, indoctrinate for generational change. Critical race theory isn't going to solve anything. It's going to create racists. It may not be public racism, but it's going to be behind closed doors, silent racism. The proponents of critical race theory and the liberals who are pushing all of this systemic racism ideology are the people that are creating this illusion that there is actual widespread racism, that there are these issues happening. All of this stuff is made up just to keep fear mongering so they can stay in their positions of power and be race hustlers, race pimps. And I say that they're race pimps because people who support critical race theory, defund the police, the 1619 Project, all these people pushing this radical ideology, essentially keep and retain their power, their position, because they feed off of racial tension and divide. They don't offer anything to repair the broken society, the inherently systemic racist society that they say we have. They don't offer any ideas to fix it, to repair it, or to resolve any conflict between any races. In fact, they're doing the opposite. They're furthering the divide between races, between the white and black people, because they want to demonize and paint white people and white children as the devil, a symbol of evil. There are people who do things to taint the image of the many, but to just say that due to the fact this person is white, they're inherently racist. That's the type of rhetoric and ideology that they push that will continue to further put a divide between races. And that's why I say that they're race pimps. They have to keep up and maintain an image of a racist society where it's unfair to people of color, to keep people brainwashed to believing that so they can continue to do what they do. And the only way to combat this is for people to stand up and keep fighting. Fight for your children to grow up and develop their own ideas, their own opinions. Let kids just be kids. Let them live. Let them grow to make their own decisions, their own observations. Let them become members of society without being swayed or indoctrinated. I oppose critical race theory. I oppose the indoctrination of children. Do you?